Hey guys, it's Maddie from Let's Eat Plants, and today I'm going to try making watermelon tuna. So this is actually a recipe that has been around for a while. I think I first saw it like 3 or 4 years ago actually, and it has always just looked so interesting to me. Like, first of all, the concept of making watermelon into a savory dish just kind of boggles my mind already. So I just felt like this is a recipe that I had to try, and 3 or 4 years later, I'm finally doing it. Now I do have to say my expectations for this recipe are pretty low because I just feel like there's always going to be that watermelon flavor hidden in there somewhere. So I'm not exactly expecting this to taste like real tuna, but I am very curious just what does it taste like? So I did search a lot of different recipes to find kind of the best one that I could, and I did notice that a lot of them were using a neutral oil, which I guess makes sense because there is kind of like a fatty quality to tuna, but I was looking for a recipe that was as low oil as possible, so I kind of combined a couple recipes together. So I'm gonna link all the recipes that I used for inspiration in the description box down below, and of course I will also write out my full recipe there as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I've actually already been marinating the watermelon in the fridge for the past few hours. So I'm just gonna walk you through what I did this morning to go ahead and start the watermelon tuna. So the first thing we're going to need to do, of course, is to cut the skin or rind off of our watermelon. Now we're just going to cube the watermelon into chunks. I did read in a lot of recipe notes that the watermelon will shrink when you bake it, which we are going to do. So do make the chunks a little bit larger than you want to eat them because they will shrink down quite a bit. Then I just made the marinade, which is tamari, rice vinegar, and sesame oil. Now, finding a substitute for sesame oil is quite difficult. It has a very unique flavor that I feel that even sesame paste doesn't really quite match up to. So if you are completely no oil, I'm not exactly sure the best substitute suggestion for this recipe. I personally do keep sesame oil on hand for certain recipes because sometimes there just is no replacement, and I feel this just might be one of those recipes. However, if you guys have any substitution suggestions for this sesame oil, let us know in the comments down below. I'm sure a lot of people would love to know if there are any. I also added some nori seaweed, which is just the seaweed sheets that we use for making sushi rolls. And I just blitzed about 1/3 of a sheet in the blender, and that's how I got little tiny flakes, and then sprinkled that all over the watermelon as well. This hopefully will give the watermelon tuna that kind of fishy flavor that tuna would normally have. So now the watermelon tuna is just chilling in the refrigerator. It needs to marinate and let all of the flavors soak into it. So we will be back in a couple hours to go ahead and add it to the oven. Now, just a quick note about baking. You actually don't have to bake this recipe. I've seen a lot of recipes where you just put the watermelon into the fridge to marinate, and then you just go ahead and eat it cold straight from the fridge. So that's definitely an option as well, but of the things that I've read, the texture changes a lot once you bake it. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and try it that way, but if you didn't want to bake it, you definitely don't have to. Okay, so our watermelon has been marinating in the fridge for the last few hours, and I didn't want to leave it marinating for too long. I know that some recipes say you can marinate it for 6 hours or even overnight, but since I didn't use any neutral flavored oil or any oil other than the sesame oil, I didn't want the flavors of tamari to be too strong. I didn't want the watermelon to get too salty. I think if you had the extra oil in there, it would cut down on the amount of salty flavors that are seeping into the watermelon. So I think just a few hours should be good for this recipe. And now I have preheated the oven already. We are just going to pop these onto a baking sheet with some parchment paper, or you can also use your reusable baking mats if you'd like. And we are going to let this bake in the oven and then hopefully take on the texture of tuna. Okay, it smells very interesting in here. I'm not sure that it smells like fish or tuna or anything, but it does smell salty in here. So actually what I did is I flipped all the pieces after about 30 minutes, and then I just took off the small pieces after 1 hour of baking, and I left the large pieces for the full 1.5 hours. So do note that when you're cutting your watermelon, if you can cut them all approximately the same size, they will bake in the same amount of time instead of doing what I did, which is having to take off the small pieces before the rest of the pieces are done. I also noticed that my pieces got a little bit charred. I think my oven runs a little bit hot, this new oven does. So I think for next time I would probably bake it at 330 for my oven, and that way we won't have any of the pieces get any like burned areas. But I mean, visually, this is so intriguing. I'm not really sure what it looks like, but it's definitely an interesting texture and interesting color. Like really such a unique concept. Whoever thought of this is like very clever. Okay, let's go ahead and give this a try. I have zero expectations for what it should actually taste like, so I'm curious. Let's go ahead and do this. Huh. That is interesting. I am not convinced that it tastes like tuna. To be honest, I haven't had tuna in a really long time, like over 4 years. However, before going vegan, I did have it a lot, and I don't remember tasting it like this really. It does still taste pretty good. It is like very salty, very savory, but I think that the watermelon juices do add a touch of sweetness into the overall flavor, which makes for a really good marinade combo. There's really hardly any watermelon flavor. There's like a very, very slight hint, but it still doesn't taste like watermelon on those pieces. Like if someone were to serve this to you and you didn't know what it was, I don't think you'd guess watermelon. I don't know what you would guess, but probably not watermelon. I don't think that I'm going to be trying to fool any of my friends into thinking that this is tuna, but I do kind of like it, and I think on a little poke bowl, it might taste really good. Well, if nothing else, it does look really good. I actually kind of like the small hint of sweetness coming from the watermelon. I mean, definitely manage your expectations so that you're not thinking that it's gonna taste like tuna, because I don't really think that it tastes like tuna. Maybe if you were to up the amount of nori, because the nori is really what's giving it that fishy taste. But everything else is kind of like just giving it like a salty flavor. So just go into it knowing that it's not gonna taste exactly like tuna, but it does taste good. It is a really fun way to use up watermelon, and it makes a really nice little meal here. And actually, if you like these kind of experimental recipe videos, give this video a thumbs up and or a comment down below so that I know you like these kinds of videos. And also, I'm gonna leave the whole food plant-based sushi recipe that I have on this channel right here. You guys can watch that after this video. I feel like that could go together with this recipe really well. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. I'm making new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And with that, let's eat plants, and I will see you guys next time.